Today on Ag News Daily.
My research from last year showed that we got a return on investment if we were spraying susceptible hybrids, so those racehorse type hybrids that tend to be more susceptible to disease. But on the more defensive hybrids that have more resistance to disease, you didn't necessarily get a return on investment for that fungicide.
Welcome back to the Ag News Daily Show. Michelle Stengler here, joined by our summer intern, Josie Kelly. It's certainly been a fun and busy summer. A lot of things we're watching here on Ag News Daily, but it's in the midst of county fair season.
For sure, Michelle. I am actually going to hit up another county fair later tonight, get to go see a concert. So always fun.
Sounds like an exciting adventure. And hopefully the weather will continue to be nice. A little breeze here these past few days, but looking ahead to the weekend, warmer temperatures are expected to return across much of the Corn Belt after a brief break from the heat. Most areas are expected to stay dry, although scattered showers are possible in parts of the region. I know that there are many parts of the Midwest that are looking for that rain. Early next week, another cold front is expected to move through the Midwest, bringing another chance for scattered showers and a return to slightly cooler temperatures. As corn moves through pollination and soybeans continue setting pods, weather conditions will remain a key factor for crop development and grain markets. But Josie, what's happening in crop progress this week?
The latest USDA's crop progress report shows the nation's corn and soybean crops continue to hold steady despite pockets of excessive moisture across the Midwest. Nationally, 67% of the corn crop is rated good to excellent, unchanged from last week, and ahead of last year's 57%. Soybean conditions also remained stable, with 66% rated good to excellent, while development continues near the 5-year average. Corn silking reached 54% nationwide, matching the 5-year average, while 11% of the crop has reached the dough stage. Soybeans are 60% blooming and 24% setting pods, both close to normal for this point in the season. Winter wheat harvest advanced to 71% complete, just behind the 5-year average of 72%. While recent rainfall has supported crop conditions in many areas, producers continue to monitor fields for disease pressure as crops move through key reproductive stages. We'll be back with more news after this week's tip with Corteva Agriscience.
White mold can easily take off 20 to 30 bushels in yield by essentially entering the bloom. It will move up and down that stem, ultimately shutting off water nutrient transport to feed the pods and the beans in those pods. And so the yield losses can be pretty significant, as well as add to a little bit more challenges simply at harvest time of getting that harvested in the combine easily. When we think about timing of the applications, I always use the tagline, spray twice in July. That covers the bulk of the period that we have flowering going on. And essentially, we're trying to apply the fungicides to protect those blooms, because that is the entry point for this specific disease. We really have to be proactive in controlling white mold. We can't wait till we see that white cottony growth outside the stem or the pods to begin making applications. If one's going to spray once and once only, do it at that R2 stage, which is full flower. That's the point in time where we have the most blooms present at any one time in the life cycle of a soybean plant. Visit corteva.us /row crop fungicides is an excellent spot to learn more.
On today's interview, we're talking all about crop diseases, so that will be coming up in later part of today's show. But a new analysis here from the American Farm Bureau Federation, published late last week, projects another difficult year for U.S. row crop producers. Farm Bureau economists estimate corn, soybeans, wheat, and cotton farmers could face $32 billion in losses in 2027, following an estimated $31 billion loss in 2026, as inflation, weak commodity prices, and high production costs continue to squeeze margins. The report also projects more than $7 billion in losses for specialty crop growers, including producers of almonds, apples, potatoes, lettuce, and strawberries. Farm Bureau says the outlook underscores the need for a new farm bill, stronger risk management tools, and policies that expand market opportunities, including year-round E15, as lawmakers continue debating long-term support for agriculture. Certainly something we continue to mention here on the podcast, but we do try to have some kind of positivity in some of our stories.
Looking at the tariff outlook, tariffs continue to dominate trade discussions as President Trump's administration prepares for another round of potential trade actions. Earlier this year, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that President Trump exceeded his authority by using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose broad worldwide tariffs. While that decision reshaped some of the administration's trade strategy, temporary tariffs remain in place as officials determine the next steps. New tariffs under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 are expected to be announced later this month or in early August. Those tariffs are designed to address what the U.S. considers unfair trade practices by other countries. Ben Mallon, Vice President of Research at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, says that the upcoming announcement will determine whether overall tariff rates increase, decrease, or remain near current levels. Producers will be watching closely as changes to trade policy can affect export markets, input costs, and the broader agricultural economy.
Certainly trade is a topic with the USMC trade agreements continuing with those discussions. But as we look at some crop news here on the corn front, global corn consumption is expected to outpace production during the 2026 through 2027 marketing year, continuing a trend that is tightening world grain supplies. USDA projections analyzed by Reuters show global corn use exceeding production by about 1.8%, the largest supply deficit in 16 years. Wheat consumption is also forecast to surpass production as feed demand continues to grow, particularly in livestock-producing countries. While USDA still projects adequate global grain stocks, inventories are trending lower than in recent years. Analysts say the shrinking supply cushion could leave markets more vulnerable to weather problems, trade disruptions, or geopolitical events. That doesn't necessarily mean grain shortages are on the horizon, but it does increase the potential for price volatility if production issues arise in major exporting countries, all connected back to trade and those market opportunities.
Looking at some livestock-focused news, in a decision made in the late June, the USDA has decided to invest $500 million to strengthen meat processing capacity through its new SPUR program, short for Strengthening Processing for U.S. Ranchers. The funding will go to small and mid-sized meat processors that handle 2,000 head of cattle or fewer per day, with the goal of building a more resilient beef supply chain. The Farm Service Agency will administer the program from its Washington headquarters using processing data from USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service. Undersecretary for Farm Production and Conservation, Richard Fortas, says USDA is still calculating payment amounts and notifying eligible processors. He says the investment is designed to help preserve processing infrastructure while the U.S. rebuilds its cattle herd, ensuring producers continue to have reliable market access in the years ahead. USDA says that the program will support producers who market beef directly to consumers or through branded retail and restaurant channels.
Continuing here on USDA, the Rural Development Agency has certified the Farmers Innovation Fund as a rural business investment company, opening the door for more private investment in agricultural technology possible. The fund will connect early-stage ag technology companies with farmers to test new products under real-world conditions before they reach the broader marketplace. USDA says the goal is to speed up innovation while reducing the risk of adopting new tools on the farm. Backed primarily by farm credit institutions, the Farmers Innovation Fund will focus on technologies that improve productivity, profitability, and resilience while strengthening U.S. agriculture supply chains. USDA says the certification is part of its Rural Business Investment Program, and producers can expect to see more opportunities to evaluate and test emerging technologies as the fund begins investing in new innovations, new ag innovations. Certainly a lot of talk about what do innovations look like and what does that rate of investment look like in specific.
Looking at some farm relief news, Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins is asking Congress to approve $11.1 billion in emergency farm assistance as part of the Trump administration's supplemental funding request. During testimony before the Senate Appropriations Committee, Secretary Rollins said that the proposal includes $10 billion in temporary economic assistance for row crop and specialty crop producers, along with $1.1 billion to help producers recover from catastrophic freeze losses in 2026. Lawmakers also used the hearing to highlight the need for year-round E15. South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds says that expanding access to the higher ethanol blend would create additional demand for corn, strengthen domestic fuel production, and provide consumers with more affordable fuel options. The funding request now moves to Congress for consideration. So, Michelle, a lot of talk about E15 here on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, it's continuing over the last few months, and it'll probably continue in these next few months. And another conversation, New World screwworm and some of those parasites on our animals and flies to be aware about, but also ticks. With producers here spending more time in fields and pastures this time of the year, Oklahoma State University entomologist Dr. Jonathan Kamak says tick awareness should remain a priority. He says producers should take steps to protect themselves from tick bites as they work outdoors throughout the growing season. Kamak says one of the biggest concerns is that Lone Star tick, which has been linked to alpha-gal syndrome, an allergic reaction that can develop months after a bite and cause reactions to red meat and other mammal-derived foods. As summer field work continues, he encourages producers to stay vigilant, check for ticks after spending time outdoors, and seek medical advice if they experience symptoms following a tick bite. So just a good reminder there for us as humans working with animals or working outside.
For sure, always important to hear. Continuing on the discussion of working outside, working in the fields, as corn and soybean crops move through some of the most critical stages of the growing season, disease pressure is becoming top of mind for many producers. From tar spot to the potential of southern rust, knowing what to scout for can have a big impact on the field. To learn more about what growers should be watching in the weeks ahead, Michelle spoke with Dr. Alison Robertson, professor of plant pathology and microbiology and extension field crop pathologist at Iowa State University. We'll hear more in that interview now.
Crop diseases are continuing here throughout the Midwest and nationwide in our crops. To talk about it more, we have someone from Iowa State University, Alison Robertson. She's a professor and extension field crop pathologist. So, Alison, why don't we get started? Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in the fields.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me this morning. We're out in the fields. We are at just starting pollination here in Iowa. So a lot of the crops are between tassel and maybe getting towards the end of pollination. In terms of diseases, we're seeing a lot of some Gossa's wilt and some bacterial leaf blight. But we also have gray leaf spot developing in the lower canopy. I've had reports of tar spot, northern corn leaf blight. And then within the last couple of days, we had some reports of southern rust here in Iowa. So I would say for this time of the year, pretty normal what's going on out there. We always get a few reports of what diseases are there. So
let's talk about how we can defend some of these crop diseases. What are some ways that you're recommending to growers?
Well, that's a great question. So the thing is that we see a little bit of disease right now, right? And this is the time when we should be spraying fungicides to manage that disease or those diseases. The tricky point is knowing what those diseases are going to be like in 6 weeks' time, because disease development depends on weather. And that's that's the tricky point, and it's really, really hard to do that. And so, one of the things that I've been advising growers based on my research from last year was that fungicides need to go on during this period from tassel through till, end of pollination. As late as milk stage is a good time to put on fungicides. Most of the research over the last 10, 15, 20 years has said that the best time to put on that fungicide to protect your yield is at around about silking. My research from last year showed that we got a return on investment if we were spraying susceptible hybrids, so those racehorse type hybrids that tend to be more susceptible to disease. But on the more defensive hybrids that have more resistance to disease, you didn't necessarily get a return on investment for that fungicide. And so I've been encouraging farmers to think about, one of the things to think about in their decisions is, what is the resistance of that hybrid in that field? What type of hybrid are you growing? If it's a racehorse type hybrid, then yes, you should probably put on a fungicide. If it's a more defensive type hybrid, you might want to think twice about whether you want to spray that field or not.
Even with low commodity prices, are you hearing some farmer sentiment on just the costs and the investments? Is that a key topic of discussion?
Yes. So, and that's one of the reasons why I'm recommending this, right, is to make a decision on whether to spray or not based on the hybrid on your field. Because yes, commodity prices are not great. Fungicides are expensive. And I always say that for every input, you want a return, right? And so if you invest in this fungicide input, then you're hoping to get a return on that investment in terms of yield protection and enough of a yield bump, even though I don't like to say yield bump, but enough yield that it's going to pay for that application.
Specific to some of these diseases, what are some of those symptoms that growers should be watching for when they're scouting their fields?
So these diseases that we're talking about are spots on the leaf, right? And so tar spot is recognized as, looks like spots of tar splattered across the leaf surface, right? And so they can be very small black spots. You would be able to see the black spot on the surface, on the top surface of the leaf. If you turn the leaf over, you should be able to see not necessarily a mirror image, but at least that spot on the bottom side of the leaf as well, that black. So that would be tar spot. Gray leaf spot is more rectangular lesions that range from, maybe a ½ inch to 2 inches long. Northern corn leaf blight is very big cigar-shaped lesions that can be up to 6 or 8 inches long. And southern rust is recognized because it looks like rust on the leaf, right? And so it's kind of a bright orange rust, as opposed to common rust, which is brick red. And the thing about southern rust is usually we only see the rust on the top surface of the leaf. With common rust, we would see the rust on the top and the lower surface of the leaf.
How about soybeans?
Soybeans, not a whole lot going on in soybeans. There's been a couple of reports of perhaps some frog eye leaf spot out there. I'm not sure that that's been confirmed yet. We've seen Phytophthora, we've seen Fusarium wilt, but yeah, in terms of foliar diseases, what you would use a fungicide for, not a lot of those. We would use a fungicide for white mold, right, on soybeans. And so the Crop Protection Network has a website, and on that website, they have a model for white mold. And so I would encourage farmers to go to the Crop Protection Network, check out the white mold model for their area, for their farm, and see what their risk is for white mold at the moment. And then if their risk is high, go in and spray a fungicide.
Beyond yield, are there any concerns about stock quality or sustainability to consider, at this time of the season?
Well, I know that the beginning of the season here in Iowa started off pretty wet and cool. And so there are concerns as we go into the season that we may have some problems with crown rot, and that can lead to standability issues. That remains to be seen, right? It's kind of, we'll have to wait a little bit longer to see if crown rot's going to be a problem. Might start to see symptoms of that kind of the middle of August. So around about doe stage. And then with like standability just from stalk rots and stuff, if we run into pretty severe foliar disease, whether it be grey leaf spot, tar spot, southern rust, whatever, that can impact that, or that can lead to more stalk rots, and that can impact standability. So it's a little early in the growing season to be able to predict whether standability is going to be an issue. But yes, it's something to keep an eye on, to keep in the back of your mind. And we know that if you've sprayed a fungicide, that often helps with fungicide just by keeping that plant. I mean, helps with oh my goodness, helps with stalk rot just by keeping that plant healthier.
How can this late season disease pressure really affect grain yields? As you think about, these are some of the final weeks as we're getting into that tassel stage.
The way that foliar diseases affect yield is they kill areas on the leaf, and that leaf is photosynthesizing and producing the sugars that are then used to fill the grain, right? And so when we have severe disease, what will happen is that plant cannot produce enough carbohydrates or sugars to fill the grain, and therefore we'll get reduced yields. So the kernels won't be filled as much as they should be. The plant may abort some kernels from the top of the ear because it can't fill all those kernels. And all of these little things just lead to lower yields in the field.
I know tar spot is something we're continuing to learn more about. What haven't we learned quite yet about tar spot that we're still trying to figure out?
A lot, I would say. I think we know that tar spot prefers cooler conditions. So cooler conditions favor that infection. And so that's why we tend to see tar spot starting up earlier on in the growing season. But now once we get into July and August, it really gets too hot and that disease should slow down, right? But I don't think we really understand very well how that disease may continue to develop during these conditions. It should slow down, but what are the conditions that allow it to then just increase again? The other thing that I was thinking about tar spot, I don't think we have a good understanding of how moisture affects tar spot. So we know that we need moisture there for those spores to get produced. We need moisture for the spores to infect the leaf. But we also know that if we have too much moisture, that'll reduce the severity of tar spot. So there seems to be kind of this sweet spot. We also know that it seems like the leaves need to be wet, dry, wet, dry. We seem to need these wet, dry cycles to favor tar spot, but I don't think we have a good understanding of that yet. So just a couple of questions that I maybe have. I'm sure that the folks who are researching tar spot have dozens of others, right?
I know it's a hot topic as we grow a lot of corn, and often, how can we combat it is often the topic there. So with that, do we know a lot about tar spots today that we can mitigate it and stop it from coming into our fields?
I think the thing with tar spot is we know that it'll survive in the residue over the winter, right? And particularly in Iowa, but across the Midwest, as you mentioned, we have a lot of corn acres, right? And even if we're rotating to soybean, we still have corn residue on those soybean fields that is producing spores. So as far as I'm concerned, tar spot is here to stay. We're never going to escape the pathogen, right? It's here. The best way to manage tar spot is going to be by planting resistant hybrids. And so, of course, the seed companies are working on developing hybrids that have more resistance or are more tolerant to tar spot, right? Meaning that they'll get less tar spot, they'll produce those tar spot lesions will produce less spores, and then just the presence of tar spot on the plant won't have as much impact on yield as it might do on a susceptible plant, right? So those plants are better able to handle that infection. So we need better hybrids with better resistance. And then, of course, we have fungicides, right? And I think, 10 years of fungicide trials has shown us that the best time to manage tar spot is to apply that fungicide around about silking, plus or minus, a few days, a week or so. And yes, occasionally we might need to go in there with another application very early, but I think those years are probably few and far between. So, yep, fungicide and resistance. And I always like to tell farmers to start with resistance. That should be the cornerstone of their disease management program.
Well, we appreciate your time here today. If there's one specific message about late season disease management this year, what would it be to wrap up our conversation here today?
I would just encourage farmers to keep an eye on the Crop Protection Network website and on information coming out from their universities and then also from their co-ops about, what diseases are out there, what are the risks of disease. The information is all available on Crop Protection Network, and just be aware, get out in your fields, scout your fields, see what you can see out there, and then keep good records for next year, right? So that you can learn from this year and hopefully apply it in the following year.
Well, thank you so much for your time here this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks, Michelle.
In fuel and fertilizer news, DTN reports retail fertilizer prices continue to trend lower heading into the fall application season. UAN posted the largest month-over-month decline, while 6 of the 8 major fertilizer products were down from a month ago. Meanwhile, ethanol markets were mixed to start the week, with renewable identification numbers, or RIN, values moving lower as September corn futures settled nearly 5 cents higher on Monday.
Well, looking into some market news, geopolitical tensions was a huge one that impacted markets this week. It remained that key market driver, with Russia halting vessels loading at some Black Sea terminals and shippers suspending service to the region, raising some concerns about global grain movement. Meanwhile, escalating U.S.-Iran tensions boosted energy prices and disrupted shipping in the Middle East. New forecasts here are suggesting Brazil's 2026 through 2027 soybean crop may be smaller than previously expected. Some analysis are saying, including Rabobank, they're projecting production at 178 million metric tons, about 4 million fewer than last year's crop. Grain markets throughout the week have been trading with some of this news before finding some support from buyers. Some of those things they are watching include some weather concerns, some geopolitical risk, Black Sea shipping disruptions like we mentioned, and some ongoing questions about some of our world supply crop, including Argentina's soybean crop, which helped underpin some prices throughout that we have seen. So certainly something we're going to continue to watch here on Ag News Daily, but it is the end of July, some field days. Next week, our team will be at a field day learning more about some of in the fields from Corteva Agriscience. So anything you're looking forward to in specific there, Josie?
I'm excited to interview a bunch of different people. I know they have some great speakers lined up, so it'll be interesting to see what Delaney and I can capture at that field day for sure.
And it's coming to the end of your internship here in the next few weeks. I know I mentioned, I think the other week we were just halfway through, so great to have you on team. What have you learned so far in these past few weeks?
Ag News Daily has definitely pushed me in my technical skills. So obviously every week I'm working on writing the script or editing all of our video and really gathering news. That research muscle is really being flexed every single week. But being able to see the diverse set of news across the entire agricultural industry has been really cool, really been making me really open my eyes and expand what there is in the agricultural industry. So that's probably been one of my most favorite parts of this internship so far this summer, Michelle.
I know I've seen a lot of internship programs here wrapping up, some picture highlights. So there's just a lot of cool things that come out of internships, whether it's in the crop sector or communications like yourself. And so if you guys, listeners, if you have any story ideas or what you've learned, want to share us pictures, we're happy to share them here on the podcast. But Josie, what do you say? Should we let the listeners go for the week?
Yeah, let's let them go.